is how do I find, so, well, here's what I'm going to say. Using what I know, so using, how about this? Using parallel, I keep changing it on you. Using parallel lines and angle pairs, how do I find angle measures? Measures being the number of degrees. We're not going to get out a protractor and actually measure it. So using what you know about parallel lines and angle pairs, how could you figure out the angle measures? We said you got parallel lines, and they're marked like this, and then you have a transversal which crosses through it. And then it creates some angle pairs. We also talked about the interior and exterior were. Interior is between the two parallel lines, and exterior is outside the parallel lines. You should also have out your notes from yesterday, but also we'll have a reference on the side here. Look at the first one, 2 and 6. Please tell the person closest to you. If you don't have someone right next to you, you can turn to the person behind you, make a group of 3. Tell them, what are 2 and 6? What type of angles? Okay, Alice, please tell me, what are they?
Corresponding angles.
They are corresponding. They're on the same spot on a different line. Sebastian, what are they? Yes. Alternate interior. I'm going to leave out the angles part of it. That's kind of implied. Alternate interior angles. They're on the inside and they're opposite sides of the transversal. Next one, 1 and 8. Tell your partner. Okay, Jawan, what are they?
Alternate exterior.
Yes, alternate exterior. They're on the opposite side of the transversal, outside. Elise, please tell me, what are they? Yes, side by side, inside, consecutive interior. Raise your hand if you can tell me. Zachary, what are they?
Vertical.
Vertical angles. They're right across from each other in an X. Olivia, can you please tell me what is 3 and 4?
Linear pairs.
You bet it. That means they're side by side on a line. So let's also quickly remind ourselves what we know about these things. If you remember yesterday, we traced some stuff with patty paper. Today, let's remember what we know whenever we're ready. When parallel lines are cut by a transversal, these angles are congruent. So I want the names now. Which angle pairs are congruent angles? If you know one of them, raise your hand. Janiyah, what's one? Vertical angles are congruent. They are the same measure and the same size and shape. Francesca, another? Alternate exterior. You could be looking at your notes from yesterday right now. Bella, can you give me another? Corresponding. And there's one more, William Landreth. Alternate interior. I'm going to write it over here. Kind of ran out of room. So vertical, alternate exterior, alternate interior, and corresponding. We could trace one of those angles in patty paper, compare it with the angle that it's paired with, and they should be the same size and shape. They should have the same measure. Yes, consecutive interior are supplementary, meaning the angles add to 180 degrees. They are not congruent because you can look at them and see one's acute and one's obtuse. They're clearly different sizes. There's one more. At least, what is it? linear pairs are also supplementary, meaning the two angles that are part of it add to 180 degrees. Make a note, this is without patty paper. No patty paper here. You can do it with patty paper, but I'm not. So for this problem, I'm not doing it with patty paper. Let's read the question. It says, a taxiway is being constructed that intersects two parallel runways. I just told you that they were parallel. So go to your diagram and we do these little markings for parallel. We're constructing a taxiway that intersects two parallel runways at an airport. Here's the math part of it, because that was really important, clearly. You know that measure of angle 2 is 98 degrees. What do you think I should do right now with that fact? What did I? Label it. Go to the diagram and label angle 2. 98 degrees. What is measure of angle 1? And how do you know? Okay, let's look at this. We're looking at angle 2 and angle 1. They are a special type of angle pair because we have parallel lines. What kind of angle pair is that? If you know, raise your hand. If you had to turn your head to look at it and see the parallel lines, William, what is it? Those are alternate interior angles. Yes, because they're inside two parallel lines and they're on the opposite side. So let's write that down. They're alternate, not that. This one. Alternate interior angles. Think back to what we just wrote down. Our alternate interior angles, just think in your head, are they congruent or are they supplementary? Just think in your head. What are they, guys? They're congruent. Which means they are the same size and shape, but also we talked about yesterday how they are equal in measure. So if angle 2 is 98 degrees, what will angle 1 be? 98 degrees. They're congruent. Here's how we write that. Measure of angle 1 equals 98 degrees. M angle 1. That stands for measure of angle 1. You could do it the way we just did it, but it would just take a lot more time. And since we did this yesterday, we were like, oh, hey, look. All the obtuse angles are congruent. All the acute angles are congruent. So we're going to do the same thing today. Let's start by tracing the angle that has 110 degrees. Would you trace it and then label 110? I'll do the same thing. So you know now that measure of angle 3 is 110 degrees. Write it down. What's another one that's 110? 6. George. And then Sebastian Gould, what's the last one that's 110? Thank you. Okay, so let's just think about this for a second. Angle 3 was a vertical angle, and angle 6 was a corresponding angle, and angle 7 was an alternate exterior angle. So you could use those angle pairs and figure out the same thing, but we didn't. So I'm just going to label this on the diagram as well, just so I know, hey, you already used those. Don't use them again. So all of these are 110. All the obtuse angles are 110. Oh, hello. Now we got to figure out what the other angle is. It's not 110. Remember we talked about that consecutive interior angles and linear pairs are supplementary, which means they add to 180 degrees. So, Joey, what do you think we should do?
Well, 110 plus 70 equals 180, so the acute angle would be 70 degrees.
Very well said. Another way to think about it, 180 degrees minus 110 degrees, 70 degrees. So in order to figure out, okay, here's a linear pair, how do I figure out the one that's next to it? Take 180, subtract the angle that you know. So now we're going to do the same thing. We know that, I'm just going to use angle 8. We know angle 8 is 70 degrees because that was a linear pair and I subtracted 110. So now you can trace with your patty paper again and make sure that your other acute angles are also 70 degrees. Turn out to be the same?
Yes.
I think so. So we're going to label everything else then 70 degrees. And make sure we label that down here. Measure of angle 1 is 70. Those were alternate exterior to 8. Angle 4 was corresponding to angle 8. Angle 5 was vertical to angle 8. And then we just found out angle 8 was 70 by subtracting 110.